What is going on, my friends? Welcome to the PFF College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Galina. Today, I'm sorry to do this to you guys every week. More quarterback discussion. Had on Yogi Roth, who played college football, coached college football, now is on the Pac-12 network doing analysis. Talked a little bit about his playing career. He played at Pitt with, he was roommates with Antonio Bryant and then Larry Fitzgerald. So, got to spend time with some of the elite receivers of all time, really, in college football. Then happened to go and coach on maybe the best team of all time, the 2005 USC Trojans under Pete Carroll, he's a quarterback coach basically under Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. And so we talked about his years there and quarterback play and the development of quarterbacks and all that type of fun stuff. And I think you really like it. It's my first time, talking to Yogi, first time meeting him, really. Great conversation, great dude, highly recommend it. And we'll get to that in a second. And then, of course, afterwards, talk to the boy genius, Anthony Treash, going over this week's games as usual and taking you through, the biggest games of the weekend. All right, so we'll get into it right now. I am joined now by Yogi Roth, the lead analyst on the Pac-12 network, also storyteller, filmmaker, Elite 11 coach, former USC coach, former Pitt Panther. And Yogi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Even though we're far apart, it feels like we're right next to each other.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel your energy. Okay, let's start with you in high school. You end up walking on at Pitt and getting some run. I'm looking at your stats right now. All right, 15 college catches. I have 0 college catches, so that's at least it's more than me. But so you end up walking on. But my question, I kind of asked this to Bruce Gradkowski last week, but like you got playing time at a D1 college, and Pitt had its moments back then. Were you like, when you look back at your high school career, were you like underrated? Like, did people think like, wow, why wasn't I getting these scholarship offers or stuff like that? Because I clearly ended up playing whatever, some sort of role for a D1 team.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Secondly, I love Brucey. I mean, I know him as Brucey. Okay, I've gone back.
I'm not there yet with him.
Yeah, I know Bruce Gradkowski. It goes back to when I was in college. His relative Joe Del Sardo was somebody who was like a little brother to me. Okay. He kind of took my role at Pitt when I left, which was like the slot, undersized, gritty receiver. So they tell him hello next time you talk to him. But with that said, yeah, for sure, I think I was undervalued. I think most people probably do, especially any walk-on. I can remember vividly going to Notre Dame summer camp. You did the tour, right, per se. And it was me and a guy named Ronnie Rodimer. And Urban Meyer was the receiver coach, and Bob Davie was the head coach. And they said they had one scholarship offer. And here was I, pretty unaware of recruiting at 5'11", $180. And here's Ronnie, 6'4", 215, top receiver in the country. And in every drill, I would get to the front of the line and they would say, Ronnie, go first. Ronnie, go first. So it was the first time that I understood recruiting. But it was also the first time I was like, I thought I was better than him, or at least I thought I could hang with him. And it gave me a lot of legit confidence. And I came home from that camp and I emailed, I won't say his name, not that he'll really care, but I emailed like a recruiting guru, like a Hall of Famer, and asked the simple question of how come I'm not getting recruited? How come nobody's seeing me? And he goes, Yogi, and I still have it. You just have to come to the reality of you're not a Division I player. And that really bothered me, not only personally, but now as a professional. Like, my job, I think at times is to breathe life into other people's dreams. And I'm never going to extinguish him. And he didn't mean to, but that's what almost happened. And it drove me to say, I'm going to go play D1. And I could have gone to small schools or, good academic institutions, but I was like, I can't turn on ESPN on Thursday night and see another team playing that I think I could be playing for or against. So I walked on and played in my second game as a freshman. Oh. And, it wasn't an illustrious career, but it was a really fun one because my first 2 years, my roommate was Antonio Bryant, who won the Biletnikoff. And my job was basically to keep him on the rails. and teach, make sure we were at meetings on time. Like, I understand that. But then I'd fill in for him. He got hurt and I started playing, and I was kind of that, kind of jack of all trades. And then my last 2 years, my room was Larry Fitzgerald, who took my job. And my job was to basically train him to take it. So I look at that era, and Pitt has never had anything like it. I don't know if many schools have, but it was really special for me because I learned how to compete. I learned how to, believe in myself, and ended up getting a scholarship. So yeah, it wasn't the perfect career, but one I'm excited to say that I was a part of.
So if Larry Fitzgerald hadn't taken your job, would you be a 1,500 catch receiver in the NFL right now? Is that what you're telling me? I think I'm reading between the lines here.
Totally. Well, I'll say this. I tell this to coaches all the time, is that I wish, my only regret in my playing career was that I knew more about the NFL, because I didn't know that guys like me existed on every team, right? I would never have been Larry. Larry to me is still the greatest I've seen at tracking the ball, attacking the ball, and doing it like a pro. And I have many stories about that if you'd like any. He's still one of my closest friends in that regard. And, the humanity of him is what I probably love most. Like, I lost my mom a couple of weeks ago, and he hasn't stopped calling, and I remember the day he lost his mom because it was at practice. So yeah, man, I wouldn't have taken his job, but to that point, I think I just, I learned a ton about what it was like to be professional from those guys. And that is something that has stood out to me, even as my career goes on. And then back to my regret, when I started coaching at SC, because it was a year and a half after I finished playing, a scout for the Ravens came into the building, and he's like, Yogi, how come you never tried playing? You were on our radar. And you couldn't have said anything worse to me, man. And I just didn't know. My coaches didn't teach me. The internet wasn't really a thing then. Mm-hmm. So I just wish I knew. Not that, I don't want to trade like my family and my wife and all the things that I've met because of me moving out to LA at the time that I did. But man, you still wish that you kind of got a couple snaps, or at least tried to see if you could hang at that level.
The offense that you guys were running at Pitt, that was, from what I remember, a long time ago. No offense, but it was like vertical. You guys were like, it was like play action, and you guys were going down the field at all. That's what I remember. Maybe it's because I only remember all the big Larry Fitzgerald catches where they're all like you said, tracking the ball over his shoulder, making all these insane catches. But yeah, that's what I remember. It was like a vertical play action, maybe an I-form type of situation. Am I wrong there?
Well, it was the run and shoot. Oh. So I grew up in my career watching Haywood Jeffries, right? Watching the Houston Oilers and Warren Moon. Like, that's what we watched. And that's why I still have my playbook to my left. And I watch Washington State games now with Coach Rolovich.
Yeah, that's great.
And now you add in the RPO thing that they're doing. Man, I think it's, to me, and I have an affinity for it, but I think it's best offense in the country in that regard, in the passing game. So I love that. And for a guy that wasn't that fast and wasn't that big, giving me options allowed me to win. So yeah, man, that offense, I had no clue it existed until I got there, but I've been in love with it since the year 2000. And 20 years later, I still consider it the best passing attack that I've ever seen in college football.
I finally took the relative dive into Rolovich offense when he was at, this offseason. So the Hawaii tape, and I watched a couple, the first two games a little bit at Washington State, but I was like, oh, there was a lot of like, oh, they just tell their backside receiver as well. You just run and get open. And it's like, oh, why doesn't everyone do that? Like,
dude, it's so the phraseology from Mouse Davis, who's the originator, would be aggressive common sense. So the way that I would explain it on television, when I'm calling their games, would be to, if you and I are out in the park and I say to you, get open, you get open, right? And it's aggressive common sense. You're not going to run where the defensive line is. You're not going to run where the linebackers are, but you're going to find space. And we have to be on the same page. And that's why, I've been so impressed with what they've done at Washington State for the first 2 weeks of this season, because they had no spring, they had the pandemic, they have a freshman quarterback, and they're on the same page. Yeah, so it's really something fun. And I urge anybody who's a nerd like us in football, take time this offseason to watch some Washington State or Old Hawaii film.
I think Jaden Delora, like you said, true freshman, I think he grades somewhere in the 80s already, it's only 2 games, but like that first game, I mean, he was throwing these bullets down the field. It was super fun to watch. So, going back to, one more question about your playing career. What type of, you said you're like a crafty type of receiver. Did you have like a route that you clung to? You're like, 5-yard outs, I got it. 12-yard outs, I got it. Post, like, what was your thing?
Yeah, to me, I was really good at setting people up. So whether it was press coverage, which most people try to do to me, I could get off the jam. And then for me, it was, I really have always had a good feel of momentum and spatial awareness around like the hips of a defender. Even now calling games, I could see it probably before it's happening he's tilting a little this way, across his face. He's tilting a little inside, work the out route. So I was a total possession guy in that regard. And then if I was in the slot, it was almost, it clearly is a little more comfortable, but I loved playing outside. I loved whether it was, probably better at out breaking routes just because there were less defenders out there. I probably appreciated that a little more, but any type of dig where you can set them up with the post, or any type of out where you can set them up with an in breaking route. Even like we call it like a snap route, just coming right down the stem. I'd be good because I could get guys going. No one is ever afraid of my speed, but as a DB, once you get them out of their back pedal, to me, it's over. And I think I was able to really push cushion. Like I trusted my body. I knew landmarks on the field really well. And I repped it, I just think you have to. Whenever I see young receivers and it's 3rd and 7 and they don't get to the sticks, they don't get a yard past it, I'm like, they just haven't repped it enough, man. Like, you could be open at 5, and I have Walt Harris in my ear being like, it doesn't matter if you're open at 5, man. And I was not a yak guy by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I think I was that. I really appreciated, being called upon when, the nuance of the game was called. I just think of just understanding that. And that's why I would even study, much like yourself, I studied with the quarterbacks, even though I played wide out. My freshman year was with the receivers, and then I was done in that meeting room. Like, I wanted to learn, how was that position thinking? Because I had to. That was my only advantage. And I still think that way when I call games. I'm pretty much calling it and building my game plan around, like, how am I playing it if I was playing quarterback? And then I could, kind of go and branch off to different position groups from there.
So did that lead you to this position at USC as in the court? Like you said, you're learning in the quarterback room, and then you can kind of transition over when you said about a year and a half from when you stopped playing. So you already have this idea of what it's like to, quote unquote, be a quarterback coach, even though you played receiver. Did that help?
Man, it was cool. So I'd recommend this to anybody if they don't go to the NFL. Is go play in another country. So when I finished playing, I went to Australia, and I played for the Gold Coast Stingrays. And that was my next. And it was amazing, man. And you get it out of your system, you decompress from an athlete. Our quarterback was 40 and our center was 18, right? And I felt for the first time like Larry Fitzgerald, right? Because you were just mossing people, but it was so much fun. And just a different style of a lifestyle. And you get to get out of your football bubble where you think, you and your sport is the only thing that matters. Like, nobody cares, really, generally speaking, especially, across the world. So I did that, came back, did a year doing media, did sideline reporting. But since I was at SC, I would always spend my off seasons in LA at USC. Coach Pete Carroll's son, Brennan, who's now the run game coordinator for the Seahawks. He's my best friend, best man at my wedding. He's also my teammate at Pitt. So I used to come out, and that's where I got to meet Sark and Lane and Mark Jackson, who's the AD of Villanova, and build a relationship with Coach Carroll. And he and I just synced. I mean, Pete and I were probably very similar athletes in college, similar competitive spirits. And he called me and he was like, hey, why don't you come out? And as a player, I was always told, and I think this happens to guys like, me, maybe like yourself, where every coach is like, you're going to be a great coach if you want to be. And I was always like, I don't want to be you. I don't want to sleep in this office. I mean, you retired from coaching. You know what that is like.
Yeah, that's right.
But I loved Cali and I loved LA. And I said, okay, Pete, I'll come out, but I don't want to coach. And I want to get my master's degree in communication. And he said, sure. If you can get in the school, no problem. So I got into the school and got in personnel. And 2 weeks into it, he said, hey, what do you think about coaching? And I remember sitting next to Lane and Sark, and I said, hey, dude, if you want to get back into TV, or if you want to coach, there's no better place other than the Patriots right now to learn football. And they were right. So I said, screw it, let's go. And I jumped on the coaching bandwagon. I think my salary got cut in half the next day. And I just was the gopher. I was the lowest guy on the totem pole. And for my first 2 years, I did anything that Lane needed, really working with the receivers, which was fun for me because no one on our staff had ever played receiver. And Lane was a quarterback coaching the receivers. Sark was a quarterback coaching the quarterbacks. So they gave me a voice as a young guy, which I really appreciate to this day. and then taught me stuff. I was, our staff at Pitt would say I was probably the smartest player football wise, right? Maybe outside of the quarterback room, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about football. And I feel that way.
No 24-year-old or 25-year-old. We all think we do.
Totally.
No, anything.
And I don't think players do. Like, so when I hear guys that even just go to the booth as a broadcaster from playing, a lot, but I still think even if it was 1 season or 4 seasons or 40 seasons coaching, your eyes are just exposed to so much more.
You're very like when if you're like you play defensive tackle, you might be a Pro Bowl defensive tackle. You're there, right? You're looking at guards' knees for 15 years. You know what I mean? Like the game is bigger than that.
Yeah, and I didn't appreciate that until I got back into broadcasting. So then, anyway, I transitioned to QB coach under Sark, and every year I almost left. I almost went with Lane to the Raiders, and they brought me back and said, Sark said, I'm going to call the offense, and I'll really train you as a quarterback guy. So I'd go in there. I still have my books of like QB school, and I just really went there. And I almost kept coaching. I was going to go to Washington. I was going to go to some other teams. And what I recognized that I loved, not only living in Los Angeles, surfing, but I also loved the idea of in entertainment, I could coach a couple million quarterbacks every Saturday calling games versus 4. And I wasn't going to get the intimate relationship, but then I found a way to supplement that with Elite 11. So I don't get everything I got in the QB room, but I get diversity that makes me feel really proud and happy in my life. So that's where I've been for the last 16 years now, which is crazy to think because I've always felt I was going to get back into coaching. I still think I'm going to get back into coaching. I tell my wife my dream is to be the head coach of Pitt, but just not right now when it's 85 degrees outside and snowing in Pennsylvania. So
I know that.
I know what I got for as long as I can.
I know that game very well. You mentioned that those interpersonal relationships, and I think quarterback coaching. Obviously, like I have experience doing it, so maybe I'm biased here, but I don't know if I was a good quarterback coach. No clue. But what I can tell you is that I have relationships to this day with those 3-4 guys in the room every year. And I think that is something that you probably don't get at a lot of other positions because there's only however many, there's a very small amount of that position on a team, right? The O-line group in a college setting maybe has 15 or whatever. With us, it's like you got to know these guys in and out. You're their coach, but you got to be their friend also and their mentor and everything. And that's something that even if, like you said, like if I never get into coaching back again, at least I have that. You feel like you had those type of relationships and you missed those type of relationships a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love texting with Leinart, who was the first guy I met when I got to SC. Still to this day, we'll text about Pac-12 football, for instance, Sanchez, or staying in touch with Mitch Mustaine, right, or Matt Barkley. But that's really honestly where Elite 11 is coming in my life. Okay. I get to meet, from Jared Goff to Christian Hackenberg, right, which is a fun example or Luke Del Rio and Max Brown, right? Those are 4 quarterbacks that, you know them all, but your viewership, we're lucky if they know 2. Yeah. Right? They probably just know 1. Right. And that was Jared who made it, right? Made it in air quotes. But having a relationship with Christian and knowing when he got engaged, I called one of his games when he was in the PAF or the AAF. I talked to Luke Del Rio when he was trying to transition out of college. Like, what do I do with my life? Max Brown, I hired as an apprentice when he was trying to figure out his life, trained him how to be a broadcaster, or at least exposed him to that craft. And now he's broadcasting games. So I stay in touch with those guys. And I love that. And I know it's on behalf of Trent Dilfer and our staff at Elite 11. We love that because how often, and I tell these guys that every year, I say, I've been to the Heisman. Heisman's insane. Heisman's insane. The amount of people in one room who are so special is very unique. But I'll always say this, that being in a room with just quarterbacks is still the most powerful room I've ever been in because everybody's the CEO. Everybody's the alpha and everybody's trying to learn from one another. Everybody's trying to lead people and everybody's trying to be better and everybody's trying to better their community. Everybody's trying to seek knowledge. Like it's not, DB, wide out, running back, QB. That's what the Heisman is. And the Elite 11 and the fraternity now, I've been doing it for 12, 13 years. It's awesome. I go back to my first year with Jake Heaps, right? Who was Mr. Everything. And I go back to Justin Fields, who I can still connect with, or do media training with guys. And they're like, I'm about to win the Heisman. How do I talk to the media? Or I'm a bust. I'm depressed. I just got out of rehab. Like that. So yeah, man, that position in that relation, and I'm still living it too. And it is beautiful, man. And I hope to continue to do that.
That's awesome. Okay. At USC, you have Lane, you got Sark there. Young pups at the time, not these wily veterans that we're seeing on TV every Saturday. Like I'm watching those two guys' offenses right now. It's not even close to what you guys were doing at USC. Like Sark has just like brought this NFL stuff, and they're running all these crossing route stuff. It's crazy, and it honestly is maybe my favorite offense in college football right now. Lane has just gone super spread. If he could play on a Canadian football field, like as wide as that is, he would put his receivers up. That's where he wants to be right now. So like, what was it like working with those guys? Did you know that they were going to be like you're like, man, these guys know it. These guys get it. Like, was it like that right away, or were they still trying to learn their stuff too at the same time?
I think, and Pete used to tell us this all the time, especially to his son Brennan and I, because we were the young coaches. And those guys were young, but they were like 30, right? Mm-hmm. We were early 20s. And he would say, guys, what we're doing right now is not real. It's not coaching. Like you guys think it is, but this is not real. Because he knew that the talent we had was insane. He knew the city we were in was just lit up at the time. And we were Showtime. Showtime was back in LA because of the Trojans. And media in college football had really exploded when we were there, right? College Game Day. The internet really wasn't going, but we created the first ever football blog in college football, right? I was running it while coaching at the same time. And you just felt that you were invincible. And not in an arrogant way, but you were like, every drive we're going to score. Now, part of that was that Pete had trained his program to feel as though practice was so much more competitive than the games, which every coach in the history of sports says, but we did it. If you could train, you would rather watch our practice film of Brian Cushing and Ryan Khalil and Sam Baker and Ray Malunga and Dwayne Jarrett than watch a game. I'm telling you, bro. Because it was ones-on-ones every day. So what did that do? It gave you such confidence that like no one could stop us. And then you add in the arrogance of youth, which is real. And then add in the communication skills of Sark specifically. And then the acumen of Lane, kind of being, both of them were the brains, but them combined, we were going to roll if we just got out of our own way. Mm-hmm. So I think what I felt is like, looking back, we didn't even know any better. Like we didn't know to think like, well, UCLA's got a really talented defensive end. It was like, yeah, he's talented, but like our left tackle's going to the league. So I just think that we had a confidence that was different. Then regarding the acumen, yeah, you could tell. You could tell Sark because he would sit, and I'll never forget it. Because my first 2 years, I was in the booth with Lane, and then I was in the field for 2 years with Sark. And in the booth with Lane, you could just see how far ahead he was on everything. Like I really got to understand coaching of setting things up, with him. First drive of the game, possession.
Lane is the best. He just, everything, oh God, that's what I love about Lane the most. Everything he does, there's something 3 plays later that he's already thinking about. I'm glad you said that because that made me excited. I love that about him.
Yeah, well, he's always been that way. And I think Pete and his dad, Monty, really helped him. Because they would always come in and say, like, this is what gives us the most trouble, right? And, okay, how do I attack that? How do I create that? And then for Sark, I'm telling you, you'd be blown away, and you'd appreciate this because you coached. Down on the field is chaos. You often can't see a lot. Sark will be able to tell you where the 3 technique lined up, or if the defensive line was in a 4-eye. And for your listeners, just like where the defensive lineman moves, like what shoulder they're over of the offensive lineman. Are they lined up over the right down the middle of his body, right down the numbers? He could tell that. He could tell when they're slanting and stunning. He could see blitzes from the field just as clear as you could see from the booth. And I think that's important to note because a lot of times, I'd say it started about 12 years ago, coordinators were like, I got to be on the field calling the game on offense. And it was all because their agent said, you got to get on TV so you can be a head coach. And for Sark, it was never about that. He could just see the game better. And to say that someone could see the game clearer from the field, That's like unheard of to me. So yeah, I think both of those guys, I knew they were brilliant. You could feel it. You knew they were going to be stars. You knew SC was launching guys. The one thing you didn't know, and the one thing we never learned was the pitfalls, which I think every coach would say those are the ones you just got to kind of deal with as they come. And those guys have, and as you referenced, they've bounced back.
So someone asked me a couple years ago what it's like coach, like on a Saturday, what's that timeline like when you're there? And I basically just said like, well, have you ever clenched your butthole together for 4 straight hours? That's pretty much what coaching is on game day. Like it's just like you're stressed for 4 straight hours. You're just up, you're tense for 4 straight hours. And then the next thing is like, you talk about being on the field. I tell you, I can't see anything from on the field. I'm lost. So like for you to tell me Sark is that good on the field, that's a whole nother level of understanding what's going on in front. It's so hard to be field level and watch a football game because there's so many players. You don't have view on all of them, and you're trying to get all this information. But did they have? So was there great communication between the 3 of you? Because that like you can't like we always talk about the OC's calling plays, blah blah blah. But like if he's not getting that information that's coming from all the different angles, you can't do anything, right?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. Number one, regarding like being tight on game day, that wasn't our environment.
Well, yeah.
It was the opposite, it was the opposite. We would meet as a staff on Saturday morning, and Pete would say, hey, look, we only get 12 of these, or we only got 3 left. Like, let's have an absolute blast. And that's how we coach, and that's how the kids played. And that's how Alabama's playing now, right? All gas, no brakes. Like, guys are not, to me, hesitating by any stretch of the imagination. So that's one. Then communicatively, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of us. It's the online coach, right? It's Pat Rule. It's Brennan with the tight ends. It's Pete as a head coach. And there's 12 voices, right? And the way that it was worked, as you know, it was a beautiful cadence of play happens. I would say where the sticks were, call the down and distance out. For instance, when I was in the booth or when I was on the field, somebody else would do that. Sark would call the personnel. I would echo it. I was kind of that guy that made sure that 3 wideouts were there. And then I would signal in the play. So for me, I got to understand that language of signaling to the quarterbacks. Sark would say it. He and I would be tethered dramatically together. And then I would share that with the quarterback. And if they had a question, or if the hash changed because the spot was wrong, I would have to relay that. So it was a dance, man, that I've never really seen before in my life.
Did Lane ever crawl on your back like this, or is that?
I don't think he did crawl on my back like this, but I think there's a 5-year-old crawling on my back. Hey, buddy.
Like it. All right, that threw me off. Now I'm out of it. I wanted to get into this. So like the USC offense at the time, and it gives me great. It's like I learned so much from that offense because someone at some point put a video on YouTube of your entire like quick game series, and I think it's probably still on YouTube. I'm sure if someone's listening, you can YouTube like USC 2005 pass concept, something like that. And I learned like slant flat, double slant, stick, like it's all in there. I mean, and you watch the timing and the efficiency of a guy like you talk about Matt Leinart, a lefty. We stand lefties here. But like it's so wild to me when I go back and watch that video, and I do like probably like once a year. Under center, quick game, 1, 2, 3, ball out, 1, 2, 3, ball out. That's just like it's not even that we're not that far from 2005. That doesn't exist anymore. So like when you look at what you were doing there as a coach, and now what teams are doing offensively when you're broadcasting games, when you're doing Elite 11 stuff. Where you're like, oh man, I wish we were smart enough to think about RPOs 25 years ago. I wish we were smart enough to run all these play action stuff that they're doing 25. Is there anything you still would take from those offenses? And then where do you think where like if you were creating an offense right now, what are the things you're watching that you like and would put in?
A couple of things on that. One is I need to go back and watch that on YouTube because it's amazing. But 2, and I believe this wholeheartedly. And Steve Young has said this, the West Coast offense, what it teaches is timing. It teaches timing, right? Which to me, under center teaches timing. And what quarterbacks have lost a lot of, in my opinion, is anticipatory skills. Bill Walsh would say that's the number one thing to play the position. Can you anticipate? Every year I go to Stanford when it's not a pandemic and I sit with David Shaw and he talks about the notes that he has from Bill Walsh. And at the top of them, every season, every offseason, when he went back and met with Coach Walsh, who was his coach, he would talk about anticipation. Under center, to me, allows you to take 1, 2, 3, ball out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ball out. We don't even need to get to 7. But when you're in the gun, a lot of times you can be late. You can be late just a hair. And that's why we always train guys from under center, even if you play in the gun, just so you can develop the timing for yourself, just so you have an idea of when to get it out. So when I'm watching games, I'm looking for that, because quarterback coaches, in my opinion, who are doing their job are still teaching under center in college because their guys want to get to the NFL, right? Or they would love to have some semblance of a play action game just to rep it. I think everybody does it at least for 5 minutes of an individual period of, let me just take a little bit from center, other than probably, pure air raid coaches. Yeah. So I say that. And what do I love? What would I love to come back? Yeah, I'd love to see some of that. I'd love to see old school Sluggo seam, Sluggo win come back.
Hey, that was one of the ones on the tape, man. Sluggo seam,
greatest play of all time. But I'll say this from calling games, I've seen that play a ton. It's just a little different. It's you watch Oregon run it. It's just with an RPO, right? Or it's with a zone read fake, right? We're still seeing some of this stuff, and that's where Lane and Sark have taken it to the next level. Like when I watch them play, I'm still calling out plays from our offense. I'm still seeing them, right? I'm seeing the end result. And I do this with Elite 11. Just drop, drive, basic, right? One of the most fundamental plays of all time. 7-step drop, drive, basic cross from the tight end, check down by the back, right? If we just went 2 by 2, right? And then I'll take it all the way into a tight formation. If the Packers ran this, Green Bay Packers and Vince Lombardi ran it. And now Washington State runs a version of this, right? Mississippi State runs a version of this, of drive basic. So I still don't think it's that far off. I just think the way that teams are getting there has dramatically changed.
Yeah, I mean, tempo certainly was just becoming a thing, I think, in the mid, the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And now it's like you can't go anywhere without seeing a team no huddle. Though it's funny, I just watched last night. I rewatched the Wisconsin Michigan game, and I was talking about it with a friend, and we realized how many shifts and motions just in that game Wisconsin was doing. And I looked it up, and it was the most, the highest percentage of shifts or motions in one game, or maybe the second high. I think Iowa State had a game this year, but the second highest in any game this year, if we take away the triple option teams. And then it was hit me. I was like, yeah, we love no huddle and stuff. You can only do that if you're huddling up and you're telling everybody, hey, what's going on? Like, hey, it's this, trade this, and Z in and Z short and whatever it is. So I think that there's it's kind of a, just wanted to point it out that I watch some tape sometimes.
Just another note on that. What's pretty cool about that and Coach Christ, or even Coach Kelly, Chip Kelly, a ton of trading and shifting and motioning. What I love about those guys, and we did it at SC, go back and watch, because I know you're a tape guy, go back and watch Nebraska, USC, 2007 on the road. And we go there and roll Nebraska, to all the Lincoln fans listening here. I mean, they remember that game. But what we did in that game was fascinating. So we're in practice, and we did a lot of cross motion, right? We would call it slide motion. So you would, let's just imagine an eligible receiver on the left. He motions to the right. We fake a handoff to our left, and we roll to the right. Traditional naked.
Yeah.
Well, and then you throw it to that player out the back door. Well, we started running the ball, and a lot of times that person in motion, their job would be to seal the end, hit the end so nobody crashes down. And one day in practice, I got to imagine it was Sark, because I don't think Lane was there at the time. He just said, hey, just run by the defensive end. Don't touch him. Yeah. And then Brennan Carroll, our tight end coach, was like, yeah, let's just see what happens. And then Pete, he put his stamp on it. Like, yeah, let's just find out. So he said, run as fast as you can. And that position ran as fast as they could. It was Chris McFoy, I think, at the time. He would just run as fast as he could. And what we found is that the linebackers and the ends would chase that, and we would have this backside run that you could run a truck through. So turn that game on, and you'll see Stanley Havili, our fullback at the time, taking fullback dive, 32 power to the house, just gashing them. And it was really cool. So to the shifts and motions and the movements, I think a lot of times it allows coaches that when you watch those offense, you think, well, they're not that creative. They just want to pound the football. They want to do what they do. They just want to set it up and dress it up differently. I disagree. I think some of those are the most creative and out there coaches because they're trying way more than what an air raid offense is trying, right? Or even Lincoln Riley in the run game, how he moves his O-lineman so much. Like they're trying stuff. So I just think it's important because there's moments in time where certain plays become staples. Slide runs are now staples. They're staples in football.
I mean, the Rams and the 49ers just went to back-to-back Super Bowls doing that, so I'd say so. The thing with Chris, and I don't know his offense very well, but I talked to someone who played under him, G8 under him, and he was saying how, like, dude, every week it's not just like, hey, we're running. It's like, when we talk about Mike Leach and stuff like that, the air raid, they're running their plays. And you're going to have a few things that are different week to week, but they're running their stuff. With Chris, it was like, dude, their drop back passing game is week to week. They're trying to get into the best plays possible. And to do that, they used, the best motions possible, the best, shifts possible, and the best drop back passing possible. So I agree with you. It's not just like, oh, we're running the football just to run the football. We're trying to create angles. I don't know if you can just line up. Like the spread era is coming kind of to an end where you can just line up in 4 receivers, run inside zone, line up and run inside zone with maybe a read or something like that. It's just like, it doesn't really exist anymore. You got to start being, I kind of talked about this with Brucey last week, but it's like, we're seeing more shifts and motions throughout college football. I looked it up last week and the SEC is like, as a whole is like shifting on like 37% of their plays, 35% of their plays, something like that, which is the highest it's ever been. But it's like, we're in this weird situation where you talk about those offenses that you were in back in the day. And a lot of the stuff that you guys were doing, well, it's coming back, all this shifts and motions. It's just, maybe it's not under center. But I also think you make a good point about teaching kids under center. It's something that I didn't do. We were shotgun team. I taught shotgun. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This would have been really smart for me to get the kids under center, teach them timing, and I think a sense of urgency is important to play the position. And maybe you don't get that in shotgun. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I just think that you don't train the internal clock, right? So whenever I see kids, and I love a lot of the quarterback builders, around the world that are doing it, and it's become a legit profession. But there's a difference between playing catch and playing quarterback. It just is, and some guys don't have the internal clock. Like, as a route runner, you have to have the internal clock of like, okay, I was supposed to get to 15 yards, but like my dude can't hang anymore. I got to snap it off. I got jammed at the line of scrimmage and vice versa. So I that's why I love that. And then Herm Edwards taught me something that, and I think their offense will be one that's going to be fun to study under Zach Hill, is that if you look at what the huddle stood for, the huddle stood for someone was telling 10 other guys what to do, but also 10 other guys were looking at someone, trusting in what he asked them to do. We don't have that necessarily everywhere anymore. I think the huddle is coming back too. Yeah. The reason I say that is because I think this generation is so much of I'm looking at my phone, a swipe generation, right? A scroll generation, if you will, a double tap generation. There's none of this of me looking in your eyes, and none of this, I believe in what you're saying. None of this of like, I can trust you. And when Herm told me that when he took the job, and I was like, man, I never thought of that. Like, because I'm going to have my quarterback look guys in the eye. And then look at how they do late in games. Look at the game-winning drives that have happened. It's not just because Jaden Daniels looking guys in the eye. Like, I'm not, trying to get ridiculous here, but I do think there's something to that of we need an element of interpersonal communication in a sport that is built on interpersonal communication, right? 11 guys have to be connected versus some of these systems, you stay on the right side of the field. You're always on the slot on the right side of the field. You don't ever change. To me, that gets you 8 wins. And I always said I would run that offense if I was the head coach or the coordinator at a school that wasn't a blue blood. I'd go do that because that would get me to a bowl game for sure. But if I had one of those premier jobs, no no way. I'm going back to, kind of what Arizona State's doing right now, or, what UCLA does, or, elements of what Rolo does, but I do it with a huddle in mind, or even if that was in air quotes and the concept of it, same thing with under center in mind to create that type of timing. So yeah, I think there is a thing where like some of these old school things that happened when we were playing back in the day are finding their way back to the forefront of college football.
Okay, another thing that I talk about a lot, whether on this podcast or I'm talking about quarterbacks with whoever, is quarterback position is the players are getting unbelievably good at an earlier age. And a lot of that has to do with whether it's private quarterback coaching, stuff like the Elite 11. That's how many years the Elite 11 can't be that long, 25, 30 years.
Yeah, I think it was our 23rd year this last year.
Yeah. So that, in the grand scheme of things, that's not that long that you guys have been doing it. So stuff like that is creating an unbelievable class of quarterbacks. So we see true freshman quarterbacks come in and can play right away. Sam Howell, Keaton Slovis, talk about Jaden Daniels. Rookie quarterbacks in the NFL come in, and you kind of don't have a choice anymore. You got to come in and you got to play, or else you're done. But so where do you see that? Like, am I right to say that the quarterbacks are just getting better? And why is that? Like, why do you think that is?
There's a few answers, I think, to that. One is quarterbacks are playing a lot more, right? Look at the amount of reps. Like we tracked this a couple years ago. Just like, I think in high school or in college, if I took, I'm pretty sure this is accurate, Goff, Mahomes, and Mayfield, I think out of the 1,200 attempts they had in college, I think combined 12 were under center. Right. So think of that. Like, why were they able to get so many reps in college? Because they had so many reps in high school, right? Like they just played. So I think that's one. Like you add on 7-on-7, you add on all these camps, like getting more reps at the craft. Two, I think that to your earlier point, nobody's asking them to say dual right Z short, A2 stem Z snag and make a mic call and, adjust the protection. That's not getting asked to any of the young quarterbacks, at least. I think guys gain that as they grow, but I remember sitting with Jared Goff and the Elite 11 quarterbacks, and I think it was like Tua, Jalen, Trace McSorley, Manny Wilkins, and Jared Stidham, I think were in the room, and maybe Drew Lock. And he said, where do you think your knowledge is right now of the game? 1 to 10. And everybody had 4 and above. And he goes, I was the same way. He goes, but when I got to the league, I realized I was a 2. He goes, maybe I was a 1. Because his system didn't ask him to do it. Yeah. Right. Because why would you? Like, your job as a QB coach or a coordinator in college is to get your players to have mastery of the system and play fast, right? And use their incredible gifts. So they don't need to be making all these calls. They don't need to be making all these changes. So I think there's that side of it. The only concern I have with guys playing early, and I say this all the time, I think freshmen should redshirt to a large degree, because Trevor Lawrence and Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels, and you could argue Keaton Slovis, it was just recent times. Those guys are anomalies, right?
I know.
There's 132 quarterbacks that sign in college football every year, at least, right? Some schools sign 2. They're not all ready to play. And I just think that the hype train, which is recruiting, I'm a part of it with Elite 11, is really inappropriate. And I think that players are, they're on a pedestal. And when I played, if you didn't live up to that, you fell, right? Pat Hoderney, you don't know that name, but he was the dude in high school. Jeff Smoker, you might know that name. He was the dude in high school and then played early. And they both fell, right? And they fell, you could argue, off the first story of a building. But now players, because of all the hype and because of social media, they're falling off the 5th story. And sometimes that could end in anxiety, depression, and God forbid, suicide. So I really, and I go intense on this of, I want freshmen to play and the hype is great, but man, let guys breathe, right? Let guys breathe. I remember I talked to Josh Rosen when he got hurt at UCLA. It was the first time in my life I've been able to exhale, because he was a dude since he was a tennis prodigy at 11 years old. I just think there's something to that. And I'm so nervous for it with name, image, and likeness, that players are going to come in, trying to be brands, and maybe are going to lose a love for the craft. I call it the wonder switch. Their wonder switch is going to be off because of all the external that coaches are going to have to be really, tuned in and dialed in and switched on to say, oh man, I got to turn this dude's love for the game back on versus just, press him to understand our scheme so he can play because my job's on the line. And that is a very fine line that every coach would probably say one thing to the media and one thing behind closed doors. And that's the world we're in. But that's my worry of young players. I love that Bryce Young isn't playing this year. I mean, I love it. In Tuscaloosa, I did an interview on the radio in Tuscaloosa, and 15 minutes later, I got a text message from somebody really close to him who lives in LA, and they're like, I heard you were just talking about Bryce. On like a radio station in Tuscaloosa? How? So imagine being him and being that age. So long-winded, but I think there's a lot of layers to that.
Oh, I appreciate that's a great answer. That's more context than I could have than I've been giving it when I get asked the same question on the radio. So, anyways, I appreciate that. So, is the Elite 11? Where it stands right now in terms of next season? You guys are hoping to get it done, obviously.
Yeah, what an interesting year it is. What I love about Brian Stumpf, he's the president of it, is that he believes, and we believe in the phrase like meet guys where they sweat. Right? We got to show up for them. So right now, a lot of guys are sweating on their own and not playing high school football. So he's and his staff have been going around the country during the college football season and have had regional camps, right? So guys can get exposure. So the kids that didn't have a senior year can still throw and get some tape because, there's a player in New Jersey who I love at quarterback. His dad played at Pitt. To me, he's got a chance to be major D1 player. And went from 6'1", 180 to 6'4", 215. And
that sounds great. I would love it.
But nobody knows him, right? Like nobody knows him because he didn't get to go to a camp, So yeah, Elite 11 has given players, to me, an opportunity to compete, which I love. I hope we're back on track. I think it'll probably be case by case. We usually start the weekend of the Super Bowl. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But we'll do something. I mean, even this year, it was weird, but we still had a finals where the top 20-some guys came out to Nashville and, got at least the experience, whether it was with coaches like me, I was virtual. My wife was due any day with our second child. And some coaches were there in person. It's obviously everything's pared down, but yeah, we're still pouring in, which, I think you got to. I think that's what sports is right now. Like tough times, like show up for the people that need you. And for us in our craft, and we love what we do for the game, but also for the players beyond the X's and O's. And I think that's where quarterbacks probably need mentorship right now the most that are 16, 17 years old.
I couldn't agree more. Where can the people find you?
They can find me on the internet, man. Just at Yogi Roth on every social media platform. And the hub of everything for me is just at yogiroth.com. So it's podcast, content. And then, of course, Pac-12 Networks, man. We got a new show that is awesome. It's called Pac-12 After Dark, which you all know the phrase. Yeah. And it is a laid-back vibe. It is a cool scene. The set's insane. And it's just a way to spend your Saturday night. So we only have, 4 more of them, maybe 5 more of them. So hopefully we get to enjoy them, man. And this pandemic doesn't put a halt on anything.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you, Yogi.
Anytime, bro. Appreciate you.
All first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 into their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. So that's a $40 value for just $20. And you'll get that opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy football and prop games at one of the fastest growing fantasy sports sites in the USA in Monkey Knife Fight. Go to Monkey Knife Fight and deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. PFF and Sunday Night Football's Chris Collinsworth is teaming up with one of the best players on and off the field, 49ers All-Pro cornerback Richard Sherman. The Chris Collinsworth podcast featuring Richard Sherman is available now wherever you find your podcast. They will provide the most interesting football conversation in sports every week. And sometimes that means the discussion will venture off the field too. Additionally, Chris will be taking a dive into the game of football as he sees it, inviting in the best and brightest to talk about everything that is happening in the great game of football. Mark your calendars. You do not want to miss the best 60 minutes of insight this season. MooseFit is a premium online workout program and remote coaching service that provides you with daily workouts based on your goals, the time you have available, and the equipment that you have at your disposal. Purchase your MooseFit membership and a MooseFit coach will reach out to you with a questionnaire. Based on the information provided in the questionnaire, your MooseFit coach will either assign a pre-made program to you or will create your custom program for you. No two programs are the same. MooseFit is well equipped to help provide you with daily workouts that will help you reach your health and fitness goals. For PFF listeners, use code PFF50 and receive 50% off your first month. For more information, check them out on Instagram at MooseFit or on their website, www.moosefit.com. In these uncertain times, life is full of questions like, when should I start thinking about life insurance? But however difficult these questions may be, Western and Southern can help you answer them. Backed by over 130 years of experience, together, we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind. Western and Southern Financial Group. Life insurance, retirement, investments. Compensated endorser. Products issued by member companies of Western and Southern Financial Group, Cincinnati, Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you PFF Anthony. Anthony Treash is here to talk to you guys about two things this week. First, like normal, we are going to go over the games between top 25 teams or involving a top 25 team. And you're listening to this on Thursday. If you go on PFF.com, our top 130, is it 130?
127 this year, because we unfortunately do not have three teams this fall.
So our top 127 quarterback rankings is out on PFF.com, and you can go and complain directly to, I'll give you his phone number. You can go complain directly to Anthony about where your favorite quarterback is listed. So just as a preview, give me the number 2 guy.
The number 2 guy?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you said they need to come to me to complain, because I almost threw in the intro, go to PFF Seth for all complaints. But I was feeling a little bit nice, so I didn't want to do that. But the number 2 guy, I mean, it's Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence is number 1. I almost wanted to – I think there is reason to say Justin Fields has been the better college quarterback. But if you're asking me, this Saturday, you need a quarterback to win a game, I'm picking Trevor Lawrence 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's say we extrapolate the rest of this Justin Fields season, after what, 3 games, 4 games? No, I don't remember. 3 games. And you look at the production as a quarterback in college football, I actually think Justin Fields has been the better quarterback. Now, if we're talking about like projecting to the next level, it's hard to go against Trevor Lawrence and all the physical talent that he has, and the fact that he did it he had an incredibly productive season as a true freshman. I think that goes a long way, being able to come in there and do that as basically an 18-year-old. So I think both can be true, and that's why for me it's really a 1A 1B thing, and it's nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence necessarily. To me, it really has to do with Justin Fields, man. He doesn't miss anymore. Like this season, he's been absolutely perfect through 3 games. Doesn't throw the ball. If he's throwing the ball, it is near the receiver. There's no wide throws. There's no underthrows. There's no behind the receiver. It is on the receiver every time, and that's why I'm in love with him. So there you go. Exactly. And I'm also kind of a little bit nervous, just from a sense of like, I mean, they're favored by 21 points to Indiana this week. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it.
Playing.
Ohio State,
we'll dive into that one.
At home against Indiana, a top 10 matchup. Like you said, I have the line here 20.5. Indiana's been good. Obviously, they're 4-0. They've been good. Maybe a little bit on the fluky side. And if you're a team like Indiana, then to be 4-0, you probably needed a bit of luck to get there, and then they've gotten it. They're not a bad team. But you can see that Vegas still treats this line as it's 3 touchdowns. Ohio State is still that much better. What do you see any way that Indiana can make this a game and even pull the upset?
Yeah, because I mean, like Justin Fields is playing like you were saying, the last three games have been nearly perfect, like almost like too perfect that he cannot sustain that. It is impossible to sustain that level of play. And if he does, that's gonna be forever known as the greatest season in history, even though it's only going to be 8 games, because that's how great he is playing at this moment in time. I'm not so sure he's going to be able to sustain that. So I think the only way Indiana mixes the game is that they play flawless. If they play flawless and Justin Fields plays, his normal self, which is one of the best quarterbacks in college football, not necessarily at that perfect level, nearly perfect that we've seen in recent weeks, then I think it could be a close game. But, I'm kind of nervous to see, because Michael Penix Jr., we've talked about him, we both love him, but there's just still been a handful of throws he has each game that you wish he did not throw, and that he wants back. And Ohio State's going to capitalize on those. He cannot have those. Sure, Michigan State, you can get away with them against them. You can get away with them against Michigan and Rutgers just because they're bad teams, even Penn State too, for a little bit. So that's really what I'm looking to Michael Penix Jr., he has to have the best game of his life. He cannot put the ball in harm's way, for sure, because, these guys are going to take advantage of it 100%.
One of the things, when I'm watching Penix versus last week versus Michigan State, and one of the things that went through my mind was he's now played against a few different styles of defenses, and he's looked good. He grades 85 or something like that. Passing grade 85, so that's very good. And again, against different styles. So you have like last week Michigan State give you off corners, a lot more quarter coverage, and he's able to throw the ball to the sideline a lot against off coverage. Get the throw in there, speed outs, 12-yard outs, 10-yard outs, stuff like that. You have Penn State running their cover 3 blitz stuff. So that's a completely different thing. People are flying at you, and they're playing zone behind it. And then you have Michigan, you're going to get one-on-ones on the outside. You're going to press one-on-ones. You're going to get man coverage, and he performed well there. So nice that he's seen a lot of different things. He's performed well against different things. Obviously, they know. Look, I've talked about this before. They know what they're going to get when they play Ohio State. You're going to get man-to-man across the board. You're going to one high safety. You're going to get man-to-man. You're going to cover 3. That's what it is. And why they win so much is because they have better players than you do on offense and defense. So going to be a tough matchup for Indiana, but hopefully they keep it interesting. And like I said, if Michael Penix, like you said, if Penix plays a great game, which I think he is capable of, we could have a close game. Okay, I want to get to Thursday night.
Wait, hang on. I also want to add, I'm looking forward to seeing Ty Freifogel after last week. The dude put up monster numbers against Sean Wade. Against Sean Wade this week, if Sean Wade plays like he did against Penn State and how he went toe-to-toe with Jahan Dotson, that's what I'm kind of like. I don't know. Yeah. I'm nervous about that Ohio State defense. I just want to throw that out there. That came in my head.
No, but this is something that we talk about with Ohio State's defense. Is like it always works when this type of defense where you're not really disguising anything and you're playing one-on-one on the outside. And I've said it before, like the difference between cover 1 and cover 3 against certain route distribution. Like if you go trips and have an isolated receiver backside, which is what Penn State did a lot, you like with Dotson. It doesn't matter if you call cover 1 or cover 3. It's man-to-man on the isolated receiver. Like most teams aren't going to still play kind of play like zone on the backside. They're going to man-to-man it. So you got Jeff Okudah, you got Damon Arnett, you got whoever else there, no problem. You just do it all day, and then there's no problem. Now we're going to have to see if Sean Wade can hold up. He wasn't great early in the season, and definitely not against Dotson. If he can't hold up again against Freifogel, who had, like you said, had a great game against Michigan State, they still probably win. But now we're looking down the road, and we're saying, okay, well, when Ohio State is going to have to play a big-time team later in the season, probably in a semifinal or a national championship, can they hold up on the outside against Devonta Smith, against John Mechie, against Kyle Pitts, against all these guys? Like that's for me the most interesting question going forward for Ohio State if they continue winning and doing stuff like that. Okay, so Thursday night, an interesting game. Tulsa and Tulane. Tulsa's only played 5 games. Tulane's played 9 games. compared to Tulsa's 5. But Tulsa's undefeated in the American. Great defense. What I'm interested in, and I kind of hope, like I'm like a pseudo Tulane fan. I say that as I wear my LSU sweater, but like I am a pseudo Tulane fan because where my parents lived when I was born, it was like basically next to the Tulane baseball field, and so I have that like connection. But kind of hoping Tulsa wins because I want later in the season, in a couple of weeks, their game against Cincinnati to mean more and to put Cincinnati on the map more. Tulane has been kind of up and down this year. They're a super fun team. Like you watch a Tulane game, you don't know what the hell is going to happen. Do we give them a chance against that really good Tulsa defense?
Yeah, I need to throw out an apology to Tulsa because last week I was saying
remember. We all remember.
And I thought that, I mean, at the end of the first half, what was it, 24-7? You know, I think they were. It looked like it was SMU's. They were going to rout them, and then they ended up coming back and winning. I could not believe it. You know, huge props to that defense. You know, I thought that defense was really just the off-ball linebacker, Zayvon Collins. I love that guy. He's one of the better off-ball linebackers in college football. I thought he was the defense, and that was it. But I mean, they really all kind of stepped up around him. So huge props to them. But I'm right there with you. I want to see them win this game for that same reason. Because
for that.
If they're still in the top 25 when they play Cincinnati, that's going to make Cincinnati look so much. It shouldn't, but it is. That's just how it works. But you know, I kind of like Michael Pratt, the Tulane quarterback. He came up in there in the quarterback rankings. He's been his freshman, started turning on kind of late. He started off on a rough stretch, but over the last 3 games, PFF grade above 79.0. So, you know, it's going to be a tough test for him against this defense, but I think it's going to be an interesting matchup.
Michael Pratt, the next Grayson McCall. You heard it here first.
Ooh.
All right.
Ooh.
UCLA going to Oregon. UCLA with one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most unexpected victories this past weekend on Sunday against Cal, who we were super, super hyped about because now, look, this game happened like 2 days after it was scheduled. So, like, who knows what went into game planning, who knows what went into prep and all that stuff. But the way that Chase Garbers played at the end of last season, we were like, yo, watch out for, obviously we know the defense is going to be good. We're like, oh, watch out for Cal because if they pair a quarterback with this defense, and Chase Garbers was excellent second half of the season. After I think he had an injury and he came back, was excellent. Yo, 2 thumbs up for Cal. And then this happened. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't even know how to value this performance. Like, he played so bad in that one, and I was like, I don't even know how to weigh it, just because you weren't sure what led up to that game from a practice standpoint with everything that's going on. I mean, finding out your opponent 2 days before. I mean, at a certain extent, you should never play as bad as he did that game. And even with everything going on, I would never think he would have played that bad. But I mean, yeah, that was pretty atrocious. But you know, I think in this one for UCLA, Oregon, I think Oregon's going to rout him just because of the quarterback situation at UCLA. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not that good.
I was told that Dorian Thompson-Robinson was better than Lamar Jackson. So I don't know where you're coming from when you say this.
I've never heard of that take. That is incredible. I have heard multiple people talk about how great Dorian Thompson-Robinson is, but he just has no passing ability.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I was hoping he would, but he just can't throw the football. And this is a good Oregon defense. And Tyler Shuck showed some promise last week. After I think he's gonna. I've come around on him. I think he's going to be a star eventually.
I think so too. He's just got to stop like blindly throwing the ball in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, man, you're good. You got really good arm talent. You seem to know what's going on in terms of your reads. Except, like, you can't go like, oh, my reads on my front side aren't there. Let me reset to the middle of the field for that route that's coming into my vision and just throw the ball. Like, there's other players on the field we got to watch out for. But I agree with you. I think we've both been on the Tyler Shuck train. My friend said after the first quarter. last week, Oregon, Washington State. He said, more like Tyler Suck. And then he was, and then he played better in the last 3 quarters. So yeah, we're both in on Mr. Shuck. Okay, Clemson back in action. Feels like we haven't seen them in forever, even though it's only been like a week off. But they're back in action, going to Tallahassee. The line's 35 points. And honestly, like, I get it. We all get it. I guess I'm just excited to see Trevor Lawrence play again. That's pretty much the only thing that I'm into this game.
Yeah, that's my big takeaway. I mean, the quarterback situation at Florida State's so bad right now. I mean, it just really cannot be, much worse than it is. I thought we've seen Florida State at a low before, but I think they're at an all-time low. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm just excited to see Trevor Lawrence, get himself back into that Heisman conversation, because I think he's going to annihilate this defense that, to me, has been extremely underwhelming. I had much higher hopes for throughout the season.
What the hell is going on? I mean, this is always a thing where it's like, is your defense like connected to your offense in terms of emotion? Like, your offense on the field the whole time, like, even though you have great players, like if you're on the field the whole time, like, can you just make plays and plays and plays? And because we know there's going to be a ton of NFL players on that Florida State defense. And they're Pro Bowlers on that defense. I think we know that. They've just been like, the whole team has just been like off there in Tallahassee. All right, you want to talk about it? Florida goes to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. All right, so Florida's gonna win. Whatever. We're gonna do it again. We're gonna have another discussion about this. So I remembered, and we talked about this a couple of days ago. I remembered that I wrote an article this offseason detailing kind of like using my own little ranking system, using our data, what were the cushiest places for a quarterback to be based on what the offense looks like. So what the team that came out on top was Oklahoma, and that makes sense because, I mean, you see it. They've produced 3 straight Heisman, two Heisman winners on a Heisman finalist. So clearly the offense is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. Not that Baker and Jalen and Kyler are bad quarterbacks, but you see that Lincoln Riley is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. So that makes sense. Number 2, surprisingly, was Notre Dame and Ian Book. That's kind of come out. I mean, like, you could make the argument that Ian Book is a Heisman. They might finish undefeated, and then if they finish undefeated, he plays like he's done the past 2 weeks, then he's definitely a Heisman winner. They do a lot of stuff like that. Anyways, getting to the point. Number 5 on the list was Florida's offense with Kyle Trask.
You said it, not me.
So they put him in a pretty cushy offense, and of course, last on my list of 14 people was LSU's offense with Burrow last year. Obviously, this year with Miles Brennan, what we thought with Miles Brennan. Like, they put him in a cushy offense, but what happened last year was, the dropped interceptions and stuff like that. Now he's better, 100% he's better, but you keep him in this offense, and the numbers are absolutely they're stunning. And it's not to take away from Kyle Trask too much. For me, it's more like the comparisons to Burrow, because it's like, yeah, I get that the box score numbers are similar, and they've played tough defenses. I'm not even saying that, but the heavy lifting that Burrow had to do in that offense is very different. I know you don't want to talk about it, so let's go to Coastal Carolina.
Well, I 100% agree with you. Like, they were. When we're talking like Heisman thing, the last thing you should be doing is comparing touchdowns, interceptions, and passing yards. The first 2 touchdowns of the game were easy peasy, lemon squeezy right there for him. I mean, it was a screen.
Well,
and
I have to look this up.
Any quarterback could have made him.
Yeah, I'll have to look this up. But I think one of the things about Trask and why that Florida offense ranks so highly in my system was goal line passing and red zone passing. If you're throwing the ball, if your offensive coordinator is calling passing plays on the 5-yard line instead of running the ball, well, yeah, you're going to have a lot of touchdowns. But like, right. You know what I mean? Like, does that make you a better or worse quarterback? I mean, yeah, not really. So that was screen passes and throws to the outside. So again, we're looking about one of my pieces of data that I put in for these rankings was how often do the quarterbacks throw between the numbers or between the hashes? If you're making a lot of throws between the hashes like Joe Burrow did last year, man, that's impressive for a college quarterback. Not that you're not impressive if you're throwing a go ball down the sideline, but the reads, you need accuracy 100%, but you're not reading anything. You're saying, hey, the safety stay in the middle of the field, I'm going to throw, to the sideline. So anyways, we don't have to harp on this every fucking week, but go on.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I need to say the other touchdowns were, absolutely exceptional. Trash played an incredible game awesome. That game. I just need to say that because someone's going to be like, he just said that he played bad. He had this touchdowns he had nothing to do with. They were screens, whatever. He played great that game.
The corner route?
It's solely...
Dude, he threw it in the back of the end zone. Oh my god, disgusting.
Exactly.
But you also have to understand, like, I can't speak for you, Tony, but I don't like Florida. Florida has ruined my day as an LSU fan many times in my life. So anytime I can trash Florida, I'm gonna do it. Okay,
I'm the opposite. I grew up when I was like 5 years old. I loved Florida.
Right.
That's what made me love football was Florida football. So I have no bias. I'm not a fan of really any team. But to say that I'm just a hater because I don't like Florida, but trust me, that's not the case. But again, right there with you with the Burrow comparisons, just should not be in discussion.
I'm putting it on record. I am a Florida hater. All right, okay, let's get to it. We've been waiting for this game for 100 years. App State, goes to Coastal Carolina. This is the game of the. This is like the Group of 5 game of the year. This is going to be an awesome football game. What are the type of things you're looking for in this one?
Oh yes, I cannot wait for this one. I think we might be the very few, diehard college football fans that are looking forward to this one. Because I think if you go up to any random, guy on the street or gal on the street and ask them, you're going to watch App State, Coastal Carolina, they're going to say no. But it's the offense versus the defense. I love the Mountaineers defense, and it's all because of that outside cornerback duo, Shamar Jean-Charles and Sean Jolly.
Dude,
so good.
Shamar Jean-Charles' stats are ridiculous. Absolutely, if there's a ball thrown in the area of if there's a ball thrown by someone playing against App State's defense, Jean-Charles will. There's my French accent coming out there. Jean-Charles. he will find the ball and he will touch it in some way. He'll get a pick, he'll get a forced incompletion, something will happen. He's great.
Yeah, we need to find out, who are coaching these guys because
awesome.
Both last year and this year, they're just so good at the catch point. Their timing is just always perfect. And Sean Jolly's not having as good of a season this year as he did last year. There's no doubt about that. He tied with Derek Stingley Jr. for God's sake, and fourth the highest graded cornerback in college football. But still, I really like both these corners, but this is a really tough offense. This is one of the best offenses in the group of non-Power 5 offenses outside of BYU, of course, but that's only because of Zach Wilson. I'm really excited for this one. And considering all the games on the 12 o'clock slate, this is probably the one that's going to go up on the main screen here at the Treash apartment in downtown Cincinnati.
Okay, North Alabama goes to Provo, Utah. Provo, Utah to take on BYU. Okay, BYU is going to win. We're just waiting for BYU, San Diego State in about 3 weeks.
And even San Diego State right now is playing incredily bad. It's Austin Gale's Aztecs. They're not playing good at all whatsoever. So this game, I was more excited. I was on the same level as like the Boise State game for Zach Wilson against this defense, but they ain't looking pretty right now.
All right, and then another Group of 5 game. This is the big one for the weekend. Just slightly bigger than App State, Coastal Carolina. Cincinnati goes to the bounce house. Play the Golden Knights. Huge game. I think this really could go either way. As much as I really like what Cincinnati's doing right now, they've been awesome the past 4 games on offense and defense. UCF can play offense, man. Now, I've said this before. If there's one defense that UCF does not want to see. It's a defense like this. And honestly, it's, maybe this is a cop-out that I'm about to say. Is like, well, yeah, any offense doesn't want to see a defense that could just straight up play man coverage, right? Like, if you just can't, look, when I play quarterback, if I know you're in zone the whole time, even if you have better players than me, I don't give a fuck. Sorry. Like, I'll find the holes. Don't look at my stats. Please don't look at my stats. I will find the holes in the defense.
Well, just take your word for it.
Yes, take my word for it that I'm throwing touchdowns. But against man, it's like, man, you're holding onto the ball. You're waiting for your receivers to break. It is hard. Now, obviously, UCF doesn't have any breaking routes. They just have straight 9 routes, slot fades, and outside fades. But again, this is the type of thing that I don't think UCF likes, because Cincinnati can load the box, play one high safety, put that second safety in the box. I've got his name, number 1, good player, and number 8. They can load the box. They're going to show you one high safety. And that's what UCF wants. They say, oh, anytime you give us one high safety, we're going down a damn sideline. But can you do that against Cincinnati? I don't know.
I think I can't remember which podcast it was, but I did say Ahmad Gardner is going to come up with an interception in this game, and I do think that's going to happen.
He dropped him last week, so he better come up with this one this week.
Exactly. I mean, if they lose this game, 100% it's going to be because of the offense. I don't think it's going to be like a shootout by any means. I think Cincinnati could hold UCF to maybe 20-something points, but it just really has to do with the offense as to whether or not, Desmond Ridder continues to play.
Yeah, exactly.
And, actually put up points on the board like he has been. I think that's really the key thing. I'm just kind of nervous with this guy, man. He's kind of just been inconsistent, but I do think Cincinnati is still going to win. I have all the faith in the world in this defense against this offense, as much as I love Dylan Gabriel. I mean, he was in the quarterback rankings. He came in at number 10 for a reason, even with, not really complicated reads there, like you said, with the go balls there. Yeah. But it's still just been supremely accurate on those, a lot of big-time throws downfield. So, but I'm still leaning Cincinnati. I still think they're going to do kind of one of those SMU, Memphis types of games, maybe not hold them to one touchdown like they did those two teams, but I think it's going to be a hefty win for them.
Wisconsin goes to Northwestern. I mean, this game decides who plays against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, most likely.
Or Indiana.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm hyped for Northwestern, but I don't know. I don't think they have enough. Like, Wisconsin, it didn't have great quarterback play against Michigan. Graham Mertz, obviously we saw him against Illinois. It's great. Against Michigan, just okay. They still score 50 points, basically. Like, that scares me if I'm a Northwestern fan. Like, Wisconsin, if Mertz plays at the level that we think, and look, we saw it at least 1 out of 2 games. I don't know how they can stop Wisconsin's offense.
Yeah, I just don't think they have the skill positions there. Outside of Peyton Ramsey, there's nobody on that offense that I really trust to make plays. I like Northwestern's defense more than Wisconsin, which I'm kind of surprised I'm saying. Before the year, I would not have thought I would be saying that. But as much as I like Peyton Ramsey, there's just not enough firepower there. That's what concerns me in this one.
They need Skoranek back. Skoronsky. No.
Ben Skoranek. And now that they finally have a quarterback there.
I know. It would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Honestly, look, we don't need to go into this thought exercise. It's dumb. But, like, you put Slater, the tackle, back in the fold. Their freshman tackle, Skoronsky, is having one of the best seasons for a tackle this season on any team. And you bring back a Skoranek. This is an interesting team all of a sudden. But that's a thought exercise that we don't have to get into. All right. Kentucky goes to Alabama. It feels like we haven't seen Alabama in forever. I feel like I forgot about them after the Georgia game because they just roll over everybody else. They're going to win. There you go. Good.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Mac Jones is going to play great. Devonta Smith's probably going to get 10 catches, 200 yards. That's hard-hitting analysis right there. But, I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I was hyped for Kentucky after Which game? No, I don't remember which game. I'm gonna look it up. But I was hyped for them after one of these games. And I was looking at the defense, and I was like, "Hey, you know, they I think it was Tennessee. Yeah. As a Tennessee game, I was like, oh man, doing some funky stuff on defense. They're good on D line. They're great on the offensive line." And I'm like, oh, that's not a bad combination. Obviously, being good on defense and then controlling the line of scrimmage on offense, like this is a good combination. They're just not good enough at any of the skill positions. It was Chris Rodriguez pretty good. I will say that, actually. He's very good. But outside of that, I mean, it's not good enough. And the defense just hasn't been that good. I mean, they allowed 35 points to Vanderbilt. I mean, that's not good. So Kentucky, I was hyped for you guys, and then it doesn't look like that's they're going to end up doing anything this year.
Oh, do you want me to say something? Yeah, I mean,
no, I'm trying to get back to the schedule page. Hold on.
They underwhelmed. I mean, the next game, we have to talk about, how is Iowa State 17th? How are they ranked 17th in college football right now?
Iowa State taking on Kansas City. Jesus. Iowa State taking on Kansas State. Look, it's weird because they have 2 losses. And obviously one of them at the beginning of the season to Louisiana. They're the top team in the day. If the season ended right now, Iowa State's playing in the Big 12 championship game. I don't know how. I don't really want to know how. But this is actually could be a really close game against Kansas State. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have faith in either quarterback. Even I still have to lean with Brock Purdy because Will Howard, he's been kind of in a rough spot just because he was thrown in.
We need to see
Skylar Thompson. Yeah. If Skylar Thompson was playing this game, Kansas State 100%. But Will Howard has not been able to execute that offense. I mean, play action passes were the backbone of Kansas State's success with Skylar Thompson. Has not been the case at all whatsoever with Will Howard. They even took some of those off the table. He's just been really kind of underwhelming all around. So I'm really hesitant on this Kansas State team. Iowa State's going to go 6-2. They're probably going to jump a few more spots. They're going to get into the top 15, and I think they're going to be one of the more fraudulent teams in the top 15.
All right, Tennessee goes to Auburn. Tennessee was my big-time hype team early in the season or before the season started. Just like Kentucky, that's falling apart. 2-4. I think Auburn can lose any game they play, to tell you the truth, even though they're 4-2. Yeah. And again, this is my bias having it. I don't like Auburn, so there you go. But Auburn's a 10.5-point favorite. Playing at home, do you see any possibility for Tennessee in this one?
I think they can if Bo Nix is Bo Nix.
Yeah, thank you for reading between the lines there.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, they're 4-2 right now, and they're ranked. But I mean, if the refs get the call right against Arkansas, they're not ranked. That's the funny part about this. But Bo Nix is like he just bails on the pocket so many times, and you get volatile play when you see that. Sometimes it'll work out for him, but sometimes you're going to get some very bad throws, and it just depends what Bo Nix you're going to get that game. And if there's a good chance you're going to see him maybe go off, but there's also a good chance he's going to have a passing grade in the 40s, and you're going to kind of end up winning the game because he made so many turnovers and so many bad decisions. So I think there is a real possibility. As much as Jared Guarantano, maybe you thought he would kind of get over those accuracy woes. It's almost been non-starter. Yeah. It's been pretty bad from that regard. But it's going to be. I'm kind of excited for this one just because it could go either way. I like madness, and I think this game could bring it.
Okay, that's a great I'm going to try and segue this because I'm skipping Mississippi State, Georgia. So I'm going to segue this into Bo Nix outside the pocket volatile numbers. Name me a quarterback who has not been volatile outside the numbers, who has been great outside the numbers this whole season.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler.
So Bedlam, Oklahoma State, going to Oklahoma. This is going to be. I hope this is going to be fun. I don't know if Oklahoma State can score enough, but if the defense shows up, and they've showed up for most of the season, it could happen.
If Shane Illingworth, I talk about this all the time, he's playing in this game, I'm taking Oklahoma State. But I can't. I don't know. Yeah. How I understand, like, the guy got hurt. You don't want him to lose his job, but he came back in. He has not been good. That's Spencer Sanders. I'm not sure how you can look at Shane Illingworth and what he did when on the field and Spencer Sanders, what he's done this year and last season, and say Spencer Sanders is a better passer. He gives us the best chance to win. I just can't see that at all whatsoever. I think there was a few drops by Shane Illingworth too that his receivers didn't really help him out on. If he catches those, his numbers look better. Maybe the game shifts a different way. He's probably the starter. I don't know. It's kind of maddening to watch with Spencer Rattler. Like the dude, his arm talent is just incredible. He made some of the best throws I've seen, on the run this year. He's had a lot of those drop too. I would make a case that he's probably had, I need to dig into this more in PFF Ultimate, the Bible here at PFF. But, he's just had so many great throws outside the pocket that have just been flat out dropped. A lot of them come in that Iowa State game that they lost. Had they been caught, they would have won the game 100%. And so, I'm not I think I like Spencer Rattler a little bit more than you do. But I think he's going to be better than Baker and Kyler, Jalen Hurts down the road.
I think down the road, I'm kind of on board with that, to tell you the truth. I don't think he's been that. I think he has to, look, we talk about the play outside the pocket. It's been elite this year. By far the highest graded quarterback outside the pocket this season. Just got to get better. Just got to kind of understand the reads a little better from inside the pocket. Okay, let's get on to
what you saw in that Kansas State game, especially.
Yeah. It was. Let's get on to two games left. I want to start with USC taking on Utah. So we don't know anything about Utah right now, but we do know a little bit about USC. There's talent on this team. It's in the passing game. There's a ton of talent. I just wanted to see them put it together for 4 straight quarters, and then I could breathe a sigh of relief, because this is one of my sleeper teams, not for the Pac-12, but for the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm still there were some disappointing moments from Keaton Slovis those first 2 games, but I'm sticking with him because when you're looking at those longer developing plays, he's still putting up numbers on those types of plays that are among the best in college football. And he did that last year too. And I think that's kind of when you find out, how I think that's a good area, a little bit of an underrated area to look at when you're evaluating quarterback play, how they handle, those longer developing plays. And Keaton Slovis has been great in that. I think, the offensive structure overall, I've not been that big. I think it's kind of hindering his success overall. But granted, there were a few throws that you're just like, dude, what are you doing? Type of thing. But still, I still think he's going to be. I think he is nearing close to that top 10 level in college football. We don't know much about Utah. I mean, this team was absolutely gutted from last year.
Yeah, that's right.
They lost every great player. I'm curious to see how Jake Bentley is going to be in this offense, just because. Kind of held back a little bit at South Carolina. Yeah, I forgot about Utah too. I realized they were the only team that's playing fall football that hasn't played a game yet this year. So I'm kind of surprised USC is only favored by 3. I would assume they would be a lot larger for that reason. I might have to hammer that.
All right, last one. Liberty goes to Raleigh to take on NC State. Now, we've talked a lot about BYU, about Coastal Carolina, about Cincinnati. But if BYU beats NC State, they will have 3 Power 5 wins this year. Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and then, we'll see NC State. Would that give them the best resume out of all the undefeated G5s?
You see, I don't think so, because, let's all be honest here. The only reason why BYU is ranked why they are is because of Zach Wilson. It's because he's a legitimate Heisman candidate.
Absolutely.
Malik Willis has been great this year. He's the better Auburn quarterback, like we've always said. He should have remained where he was.
Yeah.
But the passing has been spotty at times. He's not really putting up those Zach Wilson types of numbers in every single game. So that's why they're ranked why they are. I think they will have, technically they're going to have better wins at the end of the season than BYU will. But I just can't see any reason why Liberty would come close to that type of level. But I think Cincinnati too, if they end up slaughtering UCF this upcoming weekend, which is a real possibility, I think you have to give it to them just because, they completely shut down SMU and Shane Buechele, which many teams have not been able to outside of Tulsa last weekend, of course, in the second half, RIP to my take, in Memphis too. So, I've been impressed with him, especially Malik Willis. I'm not trying to discredit him, but
he's been great.
Yeah, he's been, 89.2 PFF grade this season. He's been a true dual threat for Liberty. Yeah. He's just not putting up those Zach Wilson types of numbers through the air, and that's why they're not in that top 10 type of range.
All right, that's it. I'll give you Ole Miss, Texas A&M, not happening. Georgia Tech, Miami, not happening. Charlotte, Marshall, not happening. Yeah.
I thought Ole Miss could probably win that game.
I 100%. That would have cleared a lot of. If Ole Miss would have played this game and beat Texas A&M, that would have cleared a lot of stuff up around the SEC, which I'm not sure I actually would have wanted. But anyways, Charlotte, Marshall, Texas, Kansas, Central Arkansas, Louisiana, and honestly, by the time you're listening to this, maybe even more. So keep an eye on that stuff. Thank you, Anthony. As always, have a good day. There you have it. That was Yogi Roth and me, and then Anthony Treash and me talking about college football. Hope you liked it. Come back next week on it. ESPN's Bill Connolly, the numbers man, is going to be on to talk about who's actually good and who's actually bad in college football. So stay tuned. Stick around for that one next week.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.